Ukraine's president and a group of European leaders planning to meet President Trump at the White House today following the president's meeting with Vladimir Putin on Friday. The president says that he's not looking to raise tariffs on China for purchasing Russian oil for now. Joining us to talk about all of this is Kyle Bass. He's the founder and CIO of Hayman Capital. And Kyle, we may be focused on Europe this morning and what's going to happen between Russia and Ukraine, but obviously China plays a role in that too. How are they watching all of these negotiations?
Sure, Becky, glad to be here today. Look, if President Trump ends up bringing tighter financial sanctions to Russia as a result of, call it, no peace deal, then China has immediate problems because, as you know, China and India are the two top Russian oil importers. They both import roughly 2 million barrels a day from Russia. So, if we are forced to go ahead and put the final sanctions on Russia, there's still a couple of correspondent banks there that have access to SWIFT and all of the petro monies running through there to settle the daily sales of oil for Russia. So there are a few more things we can do to turn Russia off from the financial system and really give them a real problem. So China would be secondarily right in the crosshairs of the United States Treasury and our worsening sanctions.
Although China has really escaped that to this point, the talks about tariffs, they've ratcheted up pretty significantly with India. And the big reason that's been cited by this administration is that they are importing Russian oil. As you mentioned, China's importing just as much, and they have escaped any kind of condemnation, and things have been much friendlier on that front. What you think that if things don't go well, though, with Putin, that they both will wind up really bearing the brunt of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, back when Putin first invaded Ukraine, when we talked about sanctioning the Russians, we sanctioned like 10% of their oligarchs and left their banking system alone. We allowed the oil sales to continue to happen because we were afraid of gasoline prices at the pump. So we did not engage in proper sanctions in Russia until only recently, and we've given them only a couple of, call it, alleys out. And those are those correspondent banks. And so, you said we really haven't been willing to engage in secondarily sanctioning China. But if we use our sanctions the way we are supposed to use them, then those that continue to contravene our primary sanctions should be secondarily sanctioned. And Becky, as you know, if we start removing Chinese banks from the SWIFT system, it'd be another ballgame.
I mean, that's so different than where I've been thinking our relationship is with China recently. President Trump definitely seems like he wants to make progress with the Chinese front as well. And it almost seems like the economic issues are taking precedence over defensive issues or security issues at this point. Is that not the case?
Yeah, I mean, it has been the case so far. And I think it's difficult to fault anyone for wanting to engage in better relations or peace. In the end, you have to look to the leadership of our opposition and our enemies. And that's, Vladimir Putin, it's Xi Jinping, it's Kim Jong-un and the Ayatollah. All four of those guys are now working together really to subvert Western interests. And so when we look at where these relations with China are headed and that Trump wants to do a deal, in the end, when have the Chinese ever lived up to a deal that we've signed? I mean, they're not going to start adhering to transactions here in the future, and things are only worsening in the South China Sea. So, to your point, it's separating economic engagement from their militaristic belligerence is be a big mistake in the long run.
You could say the same thing about Putin. Are you concerned by the thawing of relations between India and China?
Yeah, I think India and China have a long way to go on, quote, thawing relations. But, India's in such a difficult spot. We are criticizing them for being one of the largest buyers of Russian crude. And at the same time, India made a decision long ago. India's entire military apparatus is Russian equipment and Russian service. So no, India never condemned Putin for his invasion of Ukraine because they couldn't. So India is in this difficult situation as the largest democracy in the world, someone the U.S. really wants better relations with because we share a number of basic values together. And yet their security dependence is upon Russia. And India and China are, of course, now looking at each other because of, let me say, a direct result of potential U.S. sanctions and or tariffs. So yeah, it's a difficult geopolitical puzzle to put together.
Are you disappointed that we have not taken a more hawkish stance against China, or do you think that there is room and maybe, working with the Chinese gets us to a better place than cutting off relations entirely?
Yeah, and the word hawkish is interesting to me. If you talk to the people in the U.S. government that have the highest security clearance and the people that follow China on a daily basis, they'd say if you read just a couple of weeks of the classified briefings into everything China's doing every day against the United States and its allies, he said it would force you to go drink. So
you wouldn't give any chip? You wouldn't give any Nvidia? You wouldn't sell them even if you got 15%? Would you be selling those chips?
I mean, Joe, that was what just happened there with the H20 chips and supposed the rare earth magnets was another, Brittany Griner for the merchant of death trade. We're giving them the inference chips that they immediately go train and put into their weapon systems that are aimed at us. Because we so desperately.
That's a no. That Brittany Griner line is something that's memorable.
Andrew,
Kyle,
think about this. This was a
rolled?
hostage exchange. What's
okay,
that?
but then you believe? Here's my question: is Nvidia rolling the president, or is the president rolling Nvidia?
I don't know who's rolling who, Andrew.
Or is China rolling us?
But basically, China, you probably saw right after the trade was approved, China instructed its big internet giants to not install the chips in their particular facilities because China suspects some foul play. So, Andrew, I don't know who's rolling who. I just know that we should not be giving H20 chips in exchange for EV motor batteries. I think that was a horrible transaction.